Okay, for our next activity, you're going to take your fabric, and it's probably going to be right sides out. I want you to flip it so that the pretty sides are together. That's called right sides together. And you're going to line up the edges. Then you're going to take 2 pins and you're going to pin it. And to pin, you go down in, and then you flip it back and come up like that. So it looks like that. So we have 1 pin in, and then you take another pin, and again, you push down in, and then if you kind of just flip the fabric back up like that. So on the back, it should look like this. On the front, it looks like that. And that's how we're going to pin our fabric when we sew our project as well. So what we're going to do for this activity is you're going to be sewing 3 of these. So you're going to take your pattern or your fabric, and you're going to line it up with that 3rd line, which is the 5/8 inch line. And I'm going to try to do this and hold this at the same time. So you line it up there and put your presser foot down. Okay? And then you're going to sew forward and backwards. And then again, you're going to keep your eye here. When you're sewing, you always keep your eye on the seam allowance line, not on your needle. When you get to a pin, you take it out, you stick it back in your pin cushion. Then you go and continue. And again, my hand is here, it's guiding, I'm not holding on for dear life, and I'm watching right there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew to the end. Again, it's kind of hard to do this while I'm holding the phone too. When I get to the end, I'm gonna back stitch again. Then I'll pull my needle up to its highest position, lift it up and pull it out, and I didn't even realize I sewed over that pin. I should not have done that. That's a danger because it can break and snap and hitch in the eye. Okay, so you're gonna go ahead and have 3 things like this to start with. Okay, after you've sewn all 3, we're going to do 3 different things with them. So one of them is going to be called pinking and trimming. So you're going to take these pinking shears and you're going to cut just the very edge off. Don't go too far in. Don't go way far in close. Stay away from the stitching as much as possible. And you're going to do that so it looks like that. After we have sewn them and have pinked that first one, then you're going to go to the ironing board and you're going to take it and you're going to flip it so that the pretty side is down and that your seam, this is called a seam, is up in the air. And we're going to iron that seam open. So I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to kind of open that up and I'm going to use the iron. And I'm going to open up that seam and iron that open. Okay, now right now my iron, I think it's got to warm back up because I think it fell asleep. And you're going to iron it so it's open. The back should look really flat and nice. Okay, so you're going to do that on all 3 of them. So you can see I've got them all ironed open, and then on one side should be the pretty side. So this would be the outside of your clothing, and this is the inside. So what we're going to do now is we're going to finish these 3 different seams. So the clean finish is going to be done where we sew this under. So we're going to take this and we're going to fold it over. So I folded these over toward the seam like this. Okay, and this is called a clean finish. This is used in things that are like jackets, things that are going to be opened up and you don't want people to see the seam. So I'll show you what we're going to sew on these. Okay, here we go. We're going to take this and we're going to sew just on this flap. So I'm going to have it so it's kind of upside down like this. So this is actually folded over. And I'm going to sew right down the middle of this little fold like so. And you don't really have to backstitch on these. So you pull it out, cut it, and then it should look like this. Okay, so I'm going to do the other one and I'll show you what that looks like. Here's what it looks like when it's finished. It's a very beautifully finished seam. These are both flipped up. You do not sew them down onto this fabric, okay? I only sewed on just this little teeny layer like this. And so that's going to be what you'll staple on for your clean finish. Now we're going to do the zigzag finish. And with the zigzag finish, you're going to, again, just sew on just this part here. I'm going to put my machine on 2. I'm going to put this on about 3. And then I'm going to simply sew, again, folding it over so I'm only sewing on just this little flap. We don't want to sew it down to this, okay? A seam finish is meant to keep it from raveling. So we're going to just set this down right in the middle like that. And I'm just going to sew. You don't have to backstitch. And when it's all done, it's going to look like that. Now, you don't want to sew on top of your seam. The only place that you're going to sew is on this little flap. The rest of it is hot lava. Do not sew there. Okay, so I'm going to do the other side and then I'll show you the finished product. Okay, here's my finished product and I ironed it so it's nice and flat and these are loose. Okay, so here's my seam. Here are my seam finishes. That's going to get stapled on along with my clean finish product. Now the last one we're going to do is the pink and stitch. So I've put my machine back to the 1 and back to a 0 up there. And now I'm going to just sew on, again, always just on this little flip. And I'm going to put my presser foot down and all I'm going to do is sew a straight stitch kind of down the middle. And I kind of almost have the left of my presser foot kind of right on this edge. And all I'm doing is sewing a straight stitch. And you can see what it looks like. It just looks like that. Okay, all it is just a pinked seam with a stitch down the middle. We do the same thing on the other one, then we iron it, and then we staple it to our final sheet, and then you are done with seam samples. Yahoo! Okay, so here's what it looks like. I'm going to go iron it again. But again, these should be loose. If you sewed it down to here, if there's stitching showing on the outside, you did something wrong. So make sure, double check that you are not sewing through. You're sewing only on this one little layer. All right, good luck.